So Vijay, if I may begin, over so many years now of coaching founders, immigrant founders in the Bay Area, what have been some of your key observations? And in particular, what are some of those historical baggages that immigrant founders tend to come in as they relocate to Silicon Valley and start their journey of building their startup here?
That's an excellent question to kick off with because there are certainly some things that people assume and it's not their fault. There is a myth that there is abundant capital, people are giving it out, you roll out of bed in the morning and people want to write you a check. There are stories all over social media or discussed in different types of startup venues where people expect they're going to just bump into a venture capitalist or a prominent angel investor in a coffee shop and a check will be written on the spot because these are the random stories and anecdotes that get collected over time. When in fact the way things really work is that there has to be a lot more process and thought of going to market, of meeting with intention the right type of investors and the right type of other partners in the ecosystem who can support you on your journey. And things are not done sort of magically and serendipitously, but rather through this thoughtful process of first building relationships and secondly, to wear a multi role sales hat, whether it is talking to your future like enterprise customers or selling to investors or selling and bringing on board the right talent that can help your business grow. So I think those are some of the differences in what people may expect and how easily and how quickly facilitated things might be versus the amount of effort and time and intention that goes into making those things possible.
Yeah, and I think obviously there is so much of folklore around the Bay Area, around, I mean, this is where all the gold rush happens. You can sort of come in and sort of, straight up become, Travis Kalanick. But I think there are a lot of backstories. There are a lot of grind and a lot of hard work, and a lot of years, frankly, of failing and of kind of missed attempts behind a lot of these success stories in the Bay Area. And I think especially if you have not been here for a while, or if you've not kind of studied here or grown up here, it's fairly hard to. I mean, nobody tells you this, right? Nobody tells you the hard part.
Nobody tells you the hard part. Unfortunately, they don't tell you that while it seems though this is a very open and it is and democratic and it is and level playing field, and in many ways it is, that doesn't mean that there aren't network effects. That doesn't mean that there aren't, as you point out, these relationships that get built over previous startups or previous companies, and certainly, schools where people have met each other, and the kind of benefit of warm referrals and trust that is out there. And so that's where there's an art of influence that people acquire, sometimes consciously, sometimes just kind of intuitively, that allows them to demonstrate to people in the community that there's someone who should be trusted. Why? Because they demonstrate their authority. They in a field, they demonstrate the social proof and likability with others, which doesn't mean your primary goal is to charm people. It means you have to prove yourself in demonstrable ways. One story I'm reminded of is there was a founder who was from Eastern Europe, who was building something in the Web3 space a few years ago, and asked me like, oh, could you introduce me to some VCs in Silicon Valley? And while I was in my previous role, and I said, well, that's certainly possible, but can you tell me why? And it's like, well, the investors where we are don't get what we're doing, but people are much more savvy and they'll understand Web3, and I think they'll be much more easily persuaded, since they're already wired potentially that way in the Valley. And what I sort of coached him, and what I've coached, other founders, is that if people who are closer to what you're building don't understand, and even if they are global-minded investors in Silicon Valley, like, they're going to take that as a negative signal. Your value has to be so easily demonstrated, and that and the social proof and signaling needs to be there in order for Valley investors to invest in a company overseas. That being said, if you're trying to come and say, raise money here, they want to know, are you going to build your business here? Are you using the US to actually scale? And if so, do you show that you have the common sense and the aptitude to get started? And there's indications of current traction and potential traction. So those are very important sort of things that people need to show, both in the rigor of their thinking and in how they present themselves and the traction they've had, so that there's confidence in the part of an investor, so they develop conviction, which is a word that we use all the time here, but is sometimes less well understood. And that is when people go from understanding to truly believing in what you are going to go out and build.